Sorry, I was
Yeah,
reading.
no, no problem.
Good evening, good folks, and welcome to the City of Muskegon City Commission General Session for this Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. Before we get on with our business, I want to remind folks we have a few different public comment periods this evening. One will be during public hearings. That will be specific to that item for the public hearing. Then we'll have public comment on any agenda items. You'll have an opportunity to speak on an agenda item. Do encourage you to complete the public comment form in the back of the room. Provide your name and home address. I will not be sharing your home address or asking you to announce your home address. That is for our records. But identify, if you're going to be speaking on an agenda item, identify which item you're going to be speaking on the comment form and submit that to the clerk at the end of the dais here. We do also have a general public comment at the end of the meeting in which you can share with the commission whatever you like. You have up to 3 minutes to provide remarks in any of those comment periods, whether a public hearing or a comment period for agenda items or the general public comment. We also have phone-in comments, so if you're not able to be here in person, you can phone in your comments wherever you are watching this. It is live streamed on Facebook as well as available on the city's YouTube channel and on Public Access Channel 96. Everyone has 3 minutes, whether they're giving comment in person or by phone. We're going to start our meeting with prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you wish to join us in either the prayer or the pledge, I ask that you stand if you're so capable of doing so. We're going to be led in prayer by the Reverend Dr. D.W. Tolbert of the New Hope Baptist Church. Good evening and welcome, Pastor.
Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Commission. Let us bow our heads in prayer, please. Eternal and almighty God, we come before you this evening with humble hearts, seeking your guidance, wisdom, and peace. Thank you for this day and this opportunity to gather in the spirit of service, justice, and unity for the betterment of our beloved city, Muskegon. As we stand in this scarred season, this holy period for many and a time of reflection and renewal for countless others, we pause to acknowledge your presence among us. May this season awaken compassion, integrity, and purpose within each of us as we strive to serve one another with grace. Lord, we lift up our men and women in uniform, those serving here in our city and around the world. Bless them with protection, strength, and assurance that their sacrifice is not forgotten. We also remember those in our community who are grieving recent tragedies, those facing loss, violence, or hardships. Be their comfort, be their hope, dear God. Be their peace in the midst of pain. Tonight, O God, bless every leader, every decision, and every dialogue. Let our actions reflect wisdom, fairness, and love for all people. Guide this commission to work together for the good of every citizen, and may unity always rise above division. In the holy name that is above every name, in the name of Jesus, the living Christ, we do pray this prayer. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you.
May we have roll call, please?
Mayor Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Togo,
Here.
Commissioner Keener, absent, Commissioner German,
Here.
Commissioner Gorman,
Here.
Commissioner Colchin,
Here.
Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Here.
Thank you. All right. First up, we have public hearing for Brownfield Plan Amendment 221 West Webster and 1040 2nd Street and 221 West Webster. And we're going to be, this is going to be a report being led out by our manager tonight.
Yep. So Ms. Alexander and Director Ekholm both had to be absent today, so you get me. So this is a brownfield proposal for what's known as Core Tower, just a block away here from City Hall on West Webster. The reason the 2nd Street address is on there, the property also includes what used to be a bank drive-through on 2nd Street across from the church. So that's why those two properties are included. This is a little bit of a different situation from some other brownfield requests that we received in the past, in that, as is very evident, the work is already done. The brownfield law does allow for a look back period for work that was done already, and that is the request that's coming in at this point in time. We do have 3 representatives, Troy Wasserman from Core Realty and who owns the building, as well as Brian Bench, and then Kurt Persh. I always mess up your last name. I'm sorry. Is hiding behind the pillar from Fishbeck, and they can answer specific questions about what they encountered as they went through the renovation. One of the things that they did encounter during this renovation was some more remediation of asbestos and other things of that nature in the structure. And so rather than just doing a partial project, they chose to move forward with completing the entire project and then coming forward and asking for this abatement. Like our other abatements, this would also have a 5-year period of collection for the city at the end, so this does benefit the BRA, and then there is a administrative collection that would occur on this as well over the period of time of the collection. So I don't know if the applicants would like to come up and present anything or answer any questions, or if you guys have questions for me, I will do my best in Contessa and Jake's absence.
Before we ask the applicants to step up to the podium, commissioners, do you have any questions for the manager on this item?
I do have one question.
Commissioner German.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Is there a timeline to ask for these abatements?
Yes, the abatement can be asked for after the project is completed per law, and they can look back, and then the base year is set 1 year back. So in this instance, it would be set in 2024 as opposed to prior to the project beginning. So the property value would be a little bit more than if it had been done at the beginning.
Okay, so they're still in good
Yes. Yep.
grace.
Yes.
Yeah, well, okay, just wanted to make sure.
Appropriate
Yep.
timeline.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Just a little bit different from how we normally handle it.
Right.
So.
Any other questions for Mr. Manager right now? Commissioner Cochin.
Thank you, Mr. Manager and Commissioner German, because that was the question I was going to ask. The follow-up question to that was, so we would be allowing other people to do this as well, correct?
It is allowable by law. We just don't generally get these requests. This
Okay.
isn't a special. We're not making a special concession for this. So yeah.
Right, thank you.
Yep.
Not an exception, and it would be allowed pending the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority's approval, and then subsequently the Commission's approval. And so, where did the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority land in terms of its support on this?
So this was unanimously approved by the Brownfield Board this morning in our meeting.
Okay.
So, and full disclosure, I am a BRA board member and did vote on this as well. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Good evening. Kindly introduce yourselves.
Yeah, my name is Kirk Perschbacher. I'm a brownfield specialist with Fishback and kind of authored the plan.
I'm Brian Bench with Core Development.
City manager mentioned, it's a great project, a lot of interior demolition, a lot of abatement, and as the floors went up, additional abatement was found, and that's these expedited costs that are found. So, like mentioned, Brownfield, the Oprah was already in place. Obviously, that started right when you acquired the Brownfield with using local only funds per statute can be looked back. So, extending it out, but it also on the back end of this allows the city and the BRA to capture approximately $300,000 for their LBR. Kind of looking into the future of the city.
Okay. Excellent. Would you, naked promotion, would you care to highlight, the development that's been completed? Because I think you've done beautifully well done job with regard to the renovations of that building and the small businesses that are now being able to exist and operate, and it's always packed whenever I'm there. So we'd kind of highlight the different facets of this
Yeah, hopefully
project.
most of you are familiar with it. We appreciate that, by the way. It's a 6-story building. The upper 4 floors are professional office. We've got an IT firm on the upper floor. 5th floor, we converted to co-work space. So we've got 18 private offices there on the co-work space. 4th floor, we have a CPA firm, and they're actually on half of the 3rd floor as well, Brickley DeLong. And then our residential segment of Core is on the other half of the 3rd floor. And then the 2nd floor, we converted to retail space. We've got 2 spaces yet available there, but we have a salon and a tattoo studio, event space and a professional photographer. And then the street level is the food court. So we've got 5 different food vendors there, and of course.
Very nicely done in terms of the overall redevelopment.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Muskegon Quality Builders did a phenomenal job with
They
that.
did. We were extremely happy with that.
I love the way that you guys have programmed the entire building. A lot of various different uses, and that Vault food hall is phenomenal with these new small business opportunities, and you have an eclectic mix of businesses in there and food offerings, beverage offerings, and the liquid assets bar is very nicely done as well. And so the additional retail space on the second floor. I just think it's a very nicely done project overall, and I'm really appreciative of the work and investment that your team has made in this project. Commissioners, do you have any questions or thoughts on this before we go to public hearing? And you're certainly, once public hearing's wrapped up, we'll have additional opportunity for questions and comments before we go to vote. But anything right now? Commissioner Kilgo.
Thank you. I definitely echo what the mayor said. Beautiful space. I actually grabbed dinner last night after our work session over there, and it's the talk of the town. A lot of people are coming. Just some of the comments that I have heard. Are there any plans to do anything about better labeled parking or additional parking around the building?
That has been a topic of conversation. Actually, Troy and I have had a few different conversations about that. Maybe some additional signage, because the parking that we have is actually underutilized at high traffic times of the day that people are there. I think we probably will plan on doing some signage. Some people, I think, have the impression that some of the lot is not dedicated to our building. So yeah, it's definitely something we've talked about.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anything else right now, commissioners? Any questions for the applicant? No? All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to give comment on this request for a brownfield plan amendment, specific to addresses of 221 West Webster, 1040 2nd Street, and 1021 West Webster, otherwise known as the Core Plaza? Seeing no one in the audience, we are going to go to the phones. That call-in number is 231-724-6721. This is specifically an opportunity to comment with regard to a public hearing on a brownfield plan amendment. All right, does not sound like we have any takers. No phone calls? All right. Commissioners, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing and approve the brownfield plan amendment for 221 West Webster, 1040 2nd Street, and 221 West Webster, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
So move.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner German, supported by Commissioner Cochin. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Just a clarification, it's 221 West Webster Avenue, 1040 2nd Street, which is 221 West Webster LLC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I said
So-
221
yeah.
Webster twice.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So for 221 Webster, oh yeah, brownfield plan amendment for 221 West Webster LLC, and now I authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign. Okay.
Yes.
All understood. All right. Commissioner German, do you have anything to ask or add as the maker of the motion at this time?
I don't.
No. Commissioner Cochin, anything to ask or add? Commissioners, anything to ask or add at this time? All right. We have a motion to close the public hearing and approve the brownfield plan amendment for 221 West Webster LLC, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Kilgo,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cochin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to public comment on agenda items. I don't have any forms presently for comments on agenda items. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to give comment on and or multiple agenda items? Seeing no one in the audience to speak on an agenda item, we're going to go to the phones. That's 231-724-6721. This is public comment on an agenda item only. When you call in, please turn down any audio in the background, announce yourself, and then if you're a city resident, which neighborhood you're calling from. If you're not a City of Muskegon resident, which other city, township, or village you're calling from, and then share what agenda item or items you're speaking on. All right, no callers for agenda items. Moving on to consent agenda. Commissioners, you've had an opportunity to review. Are there any items that you wish to have removed for separate deliberation, discussion, and vote? I see a lot of fingers up. We're gonna start over here with Commissioner German.
Okay, item B and G.
And G. All right, Commissioner Cochin.
G. Item L.
Okay, Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Item K.
And Commissioner Kilgo.
Item, if we haven't said this item already, item C is in cat, and item J.
J. Commissioner Gorman, you want to join in the fun?
No, I do not.
All right. Commissioners, I would entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented, minus items B, C, G, J, K, and L.
So moved.
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Vice Mayor St. Clair, supported by Commissioner Gorman. If there's no discussion, roll call, please.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cochin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. First item from consent agenda, item B, beach shuttle service recommendation, Commissioner German.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the beach shuttle service proposal.
Support.
All right, you have a motion by Commissioner German, supported by Commissioner Gorman. Good evening. Kindly introduce yourself and report out on this item, please.
Sure. My name is Leanne Mikesell. I'm the Deputy City Manager. Excuse me. So about a month ago, we talked about this proposal. Our idea here is to create some transit options for people to get to the beach and to circulate among the beaches that we have. We have put forth a proposal and a recommendation. Our plan is that what we're requesting is that you approve mats to provide the circulator service that would go between Cruzy, Beechwood, Pere Marquette, Margaret Drake Elliott, and Harbortown Parks. And then approve Pioneer Resources to provide service. It's summarized here from downtown to Lakeside to the beach, but we're now including, after last month's conversation, a stop somewhere east of downtown as well. So I can go into some particulars if you want to hear those again, or I can just go with questions.
Well, yes. Oh, excuse me, Mayor. Yeah, thank you, Director Mike Sell. Yeah, some of the particulars that you were talking about, because I have concerns for residents in the core city areas that, really can't afford to, drive downtown or have the transportation to get there. So what areas are we looking at? Are we looking at any areas within, just say, it could be the Angel area, Jackson Hill area, Sheldon Park area, those areas and stuff?
Sure. Our original plan was that we would just start at downtown, somewhere near the existing transit center, have one stop in Lakeside, and then have one stop at Pere Marquette Beach. We were looking to provide something that was kind of easy and direct to start with. And then when we had conversations with all of you at the work session last month, there was desire expressed to look for a potential place for stops in the NIMS neighborhood and in the Jackson Hill neighborhood. And so I did follow up with the transit provider on that and got updated information on, what that would mean for the timing of the route and cost. So what is included in the current proposal is a stop, what we talked about was Fisherman's Landing, though it doesn't have to be there, and something around Hartshorn Marina, though again, it doesn't have to be there. So the costs that are included in the recommendation include 2 extra stops.
Oh, finish.
So,
Oh, okay.
we can, certainly hone in on what would be the best location for those.
Yeah, and thinking when you said Jackson Hill area, first thing that comes to mind is like, Smith Ryerson Park, that area. You have Amont Park over there also right off the highway. I think those would be good locations to pick up citizens. And you won't be too far off the route because Pioneer Resources, if I'm not mistaken, is still back over here by MCC, isn't it? That location.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's a direct route down there. I don't know what their routes are, but I would think to be somewhat convenient for those citizens in the Jackson Hill area, either Smith Ryerson or Amont Park.
Right, yeah, appreciate that.
So
input.
those are my recommendations.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Commissioner German. And Commissioner Gorman. Sorry, Commissioner Gorman, do you have anything to ask or add at this time? All right. Commissioner Kilgo.
Thank you. Deputy Manager, thank you for working on this. I think that this is going to be great for our #1 summer attraction, helping with parking, getting people downtown. My colleague from Ward 3 isn't here this evening. That's East Muskegon. I'm Ward 1 past the highway, East Muskegon also. I think to start this without picking and choosing, because A, we don't have mats running during certain times that will correlate with these times for our weekend routes. And it'd be great to be able to pick up people from every corner of our city. But if we pick one area and not another area, then it's not really helping everyone in our city. So I think downtown, and because it has to go west from downtown, or at least along the lakeshore, to get to Pere Marquette, certain stops along that route make sense because it has to go that way anyway. I'd love for it to come by the old Steel Middle School, right? Come right by my house, pick me up. I want to go. But because we're just getting started with this and we need to see how it goes and we want the routes to run smoothly, the beach route will be pretty easy, this end of the beach to this end of the beach. But the downtown circulator is going to be a little bit longer ride. People I need to get back to my car, I parked it downtown, or I need to get downtown, my family's waiting on me, or something like that. So my suggestion would be to be a little bit more streamlined from downtown to the beach, so that the routes run regularly. And I don't know what their timing is right now as far as with X amount of stops from downtown to Pere Marquette, how long is that? And then if we have 2 buses I see in front of us, there's an option to maybe have one going one way and one the other. we just probably don't want somebody to be on the bus for 30 minutes to get from downtown to the beach. So those are just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, to clarify, with the original plan from just downtown, one stop in Lakeside and then one stop at the beach, it was estimated that we'd be able to hit each stop 2 to 3 times per hour. And adding the additional stops, we'd only, get every stop once every 45 minutes, which is why we suggested adding the second bus. So the second bus offers some, increased efficiency back to the 2 to 3 times per hour, but of course it doubles the cost.
Any follow-up, Commissioner Kilgo?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Thank you. So one of the things that I noticed on this is the bus that would go from the city center to the beach does not accommodate bikes. I don't know that there's anything that can be done to fix that this year. I just want to acknowledge that. That's not ideal. And if it turns out that this is a good fit and a good use, I would like us to try really hard next year to see if we can get that accommodation. I know that when the trolley was a thing, it was not uncommon for families to ride their bike one way and then to take the bus back because it was too much for little kids to do there and back. If we cannot accommodate bikes this year, we cannot. But one thing that I would ask that we look very closely at is wherever we end up having the stops, that we make sure that there's good bike parking, so that people, if they do bike to the pickup location, their bikes will be secure.
That makes sense.
But otherwise, I'm super excited about this, and I'm very grateful for all of the work that has been done, and I think it's going to be a really cool thing for the community. So.
Thank you, Vice Mayor St. Clair, and I would just quickly concur on the desire for us to have the ability to have a bike rack on the bus, van, whatever we're going to be using. It can't be done this year. Looking to do it, in next year and subsequently. But it would be very nice if we can get like bike racks and bike parking areas at each stop. So just quickly concur with Vice Mayor St. Clair on that. Commissioner Cochin.
Yes, thank you. I also want to echo that sentiment. When I was having the conversations about this, the thought process was that people would be riding their bikes probably to this area to then get on the shuttle bus, or like Vice Mayor Sinclair said, one way and then taking the other way back. So it would be something I would really like to see us have, is that bike rack option, especially on that shuttle. The other thing is, I hear my fellow commissioners' sentiment, but when I was envisioning this shuttle, it was an idea to connect people from the east side to the lake. The people on the west side mostly have access to the lake, right? Like, that's something that they traditionally have. There are people out there who have mobility issues, and they might not be able to have that kind of access, and we're hopefully going to fix that with the shuttle service. But the people on the east side of the city, we've kind of annexed a little bit, unintentionally, but it does need to be fixed. And so in my mind, that was one of the big purposes behind this push, besides reducing traffic, was that we would be able to help those people, connect them to the lake. So I would support having a stop out there on the east side. When I was having conversations with the city manager, much like Commissioner German threw out, the first place that I thought of was Smith Ryerson Park. When we have our warming shelters, when there's emergencies, we send people there. And so that's one of the parks in my mind that stands out on the east side. Otherwise, you guys did a great job. So thank you so much for working on this. And I'm really excited to see this come to fruition, and we'll work out all the bugs and get it figured out.
Right. Yeah, I can also update you in my conversations with Pioneer Resources. They did say, while they don't have racks for bikes on the buses now. They are working on that, so hopefully by the following year, we would have that option implemented. And I appreciate all of you talking about, being able to make improvements over time. That's something that we've been talking about too, is it's kind of hard for us to predict what people are gonna, want to do and what is gonna work well for them. And so, we had planned all along that we'd be surveying people throughout the season to understand what is working and what could be better.
Thank you, Commissioner Cochin. Before I share my thoughts and start asking any questions, I want to give Commissioner Gorman another opportunity, just as the first off opportunity. Okay, because then I'm going to give everyone else a follow-up opportunity if they have anything else to ask or add. So if I understand correctly, and thank you for your work on this and presenting this last month for review and discussion and taking our further input into account and doing that additional research and tweaking this and bringing back more options. If I'm understanding correctly, the new price for the what's described here as the downtown to beach connector option, that with the 2 buses now going to 2 buses, and if we had the additional stops on the east end of the shoreline, I'll say, Jackson Hill Angel neighborhood, as well as a stop in Nim's neighborhood, Hartshorn Marina Park, somewhere in that vicinity, with those 2 additional stops and 2 buses, then the cost would be $51,800. That's the number that's reflective of all that. Okay, and it would be every 20 to 25 minute stops with that option. Okay, so I like that. I think that reflects what the original vision of the commission was, and when we discussed this in 2022 and set out our goals at that time, our 5-year goals at that time, to have essentially a transit service that hugged the Muskegon Lake shoreline, that was able to connect our Jackson Hill Angel neighborhoods with Nelson, with Nims, with Lakeside, with Pure Marquette, and interconnect those neighborhoods and those business districts to help move people about along the way. I'm not necessarily opposed to expanding it or trying to figure out ways to extend it or add additional routes or something to be able to service the entirety of our city with there, but the original vision and as laid out in the goals was to have that transit service that hugged our shoreline. And so I think this very well reflects that, what you presented here. I know staff still needs to do some work with Pioneer Resources about the exact location, whether it's going to be Smith Ryerson, which we've heard from some of our commissioners tonight about that prospect, and I think that could be a very good location. There's quite a bit of parking there, and it's a hub. It's a summer hub. Like, a lot of folks gravitate towards that, kids and all ages, gravitate to Smith Ryerson there. So I think that could be a very nice option to include on the transit route as an alternative. If for whatever reason Smith Ryerson is not ideal because there's a lot of programming there and the parking is going to be filled up and there's not necessarily opportunities for people to park, perhaps looking at the Yuba Street, the former farmers market lot on Yuba Street, because that has ample space for parking there. Folks from across our city could just drive to that spot, park there, and then hop on it. And so that could be an opportunity. But if it's Smith Ryerson, I would fully support that and welcome that. And if that doesn't work out, then I could see Yuba Street being an opportunity there. And then that's so important, taking that feedback and soliciting it and welcoming people to give their thoughts, not only the users of it but just members of our community, to see how we can work to continuously improve this new service offering to our community. And I'm so excited to see it get launched this year, and I really appreciate staff looking at that additional beach shuttle or beach circulator, that's going to be connecting all of our beach parks, and from that separate service that's going to be free to pick up from Cruzy Park and go to Beechwood Park and Lake Michigan Park and Pure Marquette Park and Margaret Drake Elliott Park and Harbortown Beach Park as well. It's just great that we're going to be able to provide that additional shuttle circulator connecting all of those parks. So because any of our, whether guests to our community or our residents who have free parking passes, they can park at one of those beach parks and then just hop on that shuttle and take it to any of the other beach parks, which I think that gets to one of the issues that has come up more recently, this past year, past couple years, which is about parking management and traffic management. And I think that's where that beach circulator really adds additional value to try to better manage where people park, so they can park at the areas that are less, heavily trafficked, and then still get to the other parks. So I really appreciate the effort that you and our staff have put into developing these options and tweaking them and being very mindful as we're moving this forward of how we can continuously work to improve it. So thank you. Follow-ups. Commissioner Kilgo.
Thank you. Can you quickly tell me about the line that says projected revenue increase for 2025, $460,000?
Yes, when we, I don't know how many months ago it was, that we changed the parking fee rates. What I did is a calculation looking at last year, how many daily passes we sold each day of the week, how many season passes we sold, and just assigned the new amounts to those same numbers. And that's the projected increase if everything else remains the same. I don't know that everything will remain the same with the increased rates. I would suspect that more people will buy seasonal passes and fewer people will buy daily passes. But we do expect to have a significant increase in revenue from the change in fees.
Awesome. And then I guess what I was trying to convey is that I don't want to poke holes in the plan because I think the plan is great. Overall, the goal is to also relieve some parking from downtown. But Sheldon Park, Steele, Marquette, East Muskegon, all the way out to Glen Oaks, there's people that live in those neighborhoods that don't necessarily have easy access to Smith Ryerson Park. So I know one of your projects has been to bring in our neighbors and get our MET system improved. So hopefully our city's growing and we're going to bring new businesses in, we're building new homes. Transportation is also important, and hopefully we can get a bus system that runs 7 days a week and runs later in the day and has more routes to different parts of our city, so our neighbors from Muskegon Heights or Northern Shores or wherever can also take advantage of a bus system or a transportation system that maybe brings more people to downtown Muskegon, and then if we had dedicated stops. So I'm looking forward to this pilot year and us getting it going and see how it goes, and then if we have to look at it after this season and see where we didn't do so well and we can tweak it. So thank you again.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgo. Any other follow-ups? Commissioner Cochin.
Yes, thank you. Director Meixel, can you speak to the stop in Lakeside and the parking situation there?
We haven't determined where the stop will be, so
Okay.
that will be something that we'll work on with the transit agency.
So there's not anyone in particular that's in mind, or
I mean, I have some things in mind, but I haven't we're not in control of all the parking in Lakeside, and so there may be some need to talk with some private property owners. We certainly could do a stop at Grand Trunk, because we do control that parking. But there are potentially other locations as well.
okay, yeah, because that's one of the things that came up in the Lakeside Association meeting when I attended the other day. Was they were talking about where the stop, and they wanted stops, just so you know. And obviously, this is the first year, but I'm just putting it out there. They did want more than one. Where the stop would be and what the parking situation would look like. Because they shared concerns that parking is limited in spots in Lakeside, especially with a lot of the beach traffic and the Airbnbs down there on Lakeshore Drive. And so they wanted to make sure that there's ample parking available, but also that individuals can get off and go visit the shops, right? So it's like a two-headed thing, and I think that's probably why they wanted two stops. The other thing is, do we have a plan in place for making sure that there is good signage at all of these stops so people know this is a beach shuttle pickup spot and this is where you park?
We don't have a plan yet because we don't know where the stops are going to be yet, but we absolutely intend to sign it and make sure that we have good communication. Once we have a plan, then I will be working with our community engagement department to figure out some communications and make sure that gets shared widely. I can tell you that for the route that Matt's is going to service, they will sign it like they would any other bus stop, and so they'll take care of that signage. And then the city will have to be responsible for the signage for the connector.
Okay. I would like to see signage that is universal so that people can know that this is a beach shuttle stop and not just like a regular bus stop also.
Sure. Yep, that makes sense.
Like a little placard or something underneath saying beach shuttle so people know. Because we get a lot of visitors.
We do.
So
Yep.
thank you so much. I appreciate you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Cochin. Mr. Manager, because I know you've had some of those conversations with Lakeside business owners and property owners about where to locate a stop there. Could you share some insights into?
Sure. Like Commissioner Cochin noted, there was discussion about which spot would be better, and two in particular were talked about kind of near Wonderland, near Dick Gezzy's parking lot on Lakeshore, or at Grand Trunk. And the business owners expressed to me they were conflicted because obviously they want folks to use the shuttle to use the businesses and maybe even come from downtown to use the businesses. So the stop sort of in the middle of Lakeside makes sense, but then from the parking side, Grand Trunk makes sense. And so those are the discussions that we still have to figure out. And also, as has been noted many times, as Deputy Manager Mike Sell has been working on this is the pilot year. This is a test run. It's not going to be perfect the first time out the door, and we will make adjustments. And we can most likely make adjustments in the season if we absolutely need to. So we'll be looking at how that impacts different things in the Lakeside Business District. And also from the residential perspective from Lakeside, something that was brought up is, Grand Trunk is actually more in the middle of the Lakeside neighborhood than the business district is, which is more on the east side of it. So if you're looking for neighbors to walk in, Grand Trunk is sort of a more middle ground of it. So a variety of different factors, but yeah, we have had discussions with some of those business owners, particularly the Business Improvement District representatives who met with me last week on a variety of topics, but this was one that we discussed.
Okay. Any other? Oh, I saw you,
Yeah.
Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this is great. This is something that's I wanted to see for a long time, and the commissioners that spoke about the concerns with parking and the areas that are not as fortunate to have transportation to get to the beach. That's why I expressed Smith Ryerson, and then I looked at we had have Fisherman Landing on here, which kids would have to cross the highway if they want to get there. That expressway, that urban renewal divide that happened in the '60s, and this is that would be an inconvenience and not as safe. But having a park where everybody can locate and come there, but I think out of the gate, we should just target those areas right now, as the manager stated and others, that we can always note and make adjustments as we go. But the thing is that they have access to that shuttle and can get out to the beach and enjoy, that pristine beach out there. And it's an asset for the community and others, around the other regions. So I think let's, go ahead and focus on making it accessible to many people as possible.
I appreciate you giving consideration to freeway, well, not freeway, but highway, and how that would impact people being able to use it. So, yeah, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. And great job, by the way, as always. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner German. And I would reinforce or echo, or concur with that sentiment that for our stop to try to, let's say East Side or Jacksonville Angel neighborhood stop, it really should be on east of, Moses Stone Parkway, not west of. So thank you for
you're
pointing
welcome.
that out. So in terms of the motion as it is, given what you've heard, we don't need to modify the motion in any capacity to reflect what's been said tonight. It's understood, what the consensus desire is, and you're going to be working on the exact contracts that reflect this, bring it back to the commission, and we'll vote on those contracts individually.
Well, the one contract, the other contract, I think is low enough that it wouldn't come to commission.
Because it's less than 25,000.
Because it's less than 25. Now, if we, at the end of next year, or at the end of the season, decide that this is something we want to do, on a regular basis, then we'd have to bring it to you, because it'd be multi-year.
Okay. Any final thoughts? Any questions? All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cochin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item C, amendment to the zoning ordinance, planned unit development compliance. Commissioner Kilgo.
I move to approve the amendment to section 2101 of the zoning ordinance as proposed by the Planning Commission.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Kilgo, supported by Commissioner Cochin. Good evening. Kindly introduce yourself and please report on this item.
Good evening, Jamie Pesh with the Planning Department. This is an update to the section of the zoning ordinance that deals with planned unit developments, or PUDs. It is basically a additional requirement that the zoning administrator ensures that reasonable progress is being made on all planned unit developments before certificates of occupancy are issued. We've had an issue lately where a long approved planned unit development in Harbortown has recently come upon a section that required sidewalks, and this is one of those things that has just created confusion. It's been so many years since that PUD was approved that we think that this is a good step to ensure that progress continues to be made on all of the requirements of a planned unit development. And it would essentially take any building that is built within a PUD and require that reasonable progress is being made before issuing a certificates of occupants. Wow, I can't say that today.
C of O.
C of O. We'll go with that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Pesh. So Commissioner Kilgo, start us off with any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Pesh, I do have questions about the amendment. I also do have questions. I'm going to start, you brought it up, Harbortown. As far as the sidewalks, do you know where we're at with that? Have we made a decision on, are they still required to put them in?
Yeah, I believe our engineering department is working with them on that.
Working with them on that, okay. As far as the amendment goes, there's other PUDs that are currently in development that are not finished in the city. And I'm thinking of reasonable progress, because with some of the other PUDs that we have in the city, here at commission meetings, we get public comments on some of the other projects that are being worked on and what they were required to do in the PUD versus what they're actually doing. Is this overseen by our Safe Build department?
The certificates of occupancy are.
Okay.
The adherence to the requirements for approval of a PUD are overseen by the planning department.
Okay.
So just to interject here, because this came up as a member of the planning commission, we discussed this, and so it is up to the zoning administrator to make that determination, not on Safe Build. So Safe Build would issue the certificate of occupancy, but Safe Build could not issue that CFO until the zoning administrator had identified or made a determination that they could
On
do
the
so.
reasonable progress.
Yes,
I'm
and so and just to give more clarity or more context, I should say, initial version of this was that the zoning administrator would ensure that every facet of the PUD were completed before any certificate of occupancy were to be issued. And the planning commission was like, that's too inflexible. That oftentimes projects are done in phases, and to say that you have to have every single thing done before we'll issue a certificate of occupancy for any phase, just felt that was too rigid and flexible. And so that's why it was evolved to reflect where the zoning administrator can determine reasonable progress is being made to start issuing CFOs on a phase by phase basis, but to have the final CFOs permitted, that it would require everything to be done and wrapped up.
Thank you. Like Mr. Mayor said, there are a lot of projects that have phases. They can get a certificate of occupancy for, let's say, phase one is done and it's ready to be lived in. They can get a certificate of occupancy for that, but they just can't get their final until the planner signs off on it.
Right, yeah, I think that would be probably discussed on a case-by-case basis with the PUDs, but the general approach would be, yeah, if you have determined that this is going to be completed in phases and phase one is finished, and all of the requirements of phase one have been completed, then obviously the CFO would be issued. The next few phases, if the buildings aren't built yet, obviously we're not going to issue CFOs, but even if they're partially completed and whatever it is that's determined to be reasonable progress for that particular project hasn't been achieved, then we wouldn't issue CFOs.
Gotcha. And a developer would appeal to who if they thought that it was done and the planning person didn't think that it was done? Who would they appeal to?
That was discussed at Planning Commission.
I'm just,
I mean,
I am curious
Yeah.
because, so let's take Shaw Walker. Apartments on this side and condos on this side, and they finish their apartments, and someone says, well, you didn't do X, Y, and Z. And they said, well, we did. And they needed to dispute it. Would they dispute that to the commission or to the planning department? I'm just curious.
That's a good question.
Yeah, so generally, if there's an ordinance question or dispute, that just would go up to the city manager's office.
Okay.
And that's just a default position with most ordinance type situations. I wouldn't see this as being any different.
Awesome.
So, yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for getting that clarification, Commissioner Kilgo. Commissioner Cochin.
Yes, Commissioner Kilgo covered some of what I was going to ask, but the wording of reasonable without any kind of parameters, I feel like can change, right? Like whoever is in that position, it might be reasonable to them, but then when they change hands with another person, it's going to be something different. And so I think it kind of creates situations where there's differences in when we're giving certificate of occupancy. So I don't know. I am struggling with that thought process. I hear the idea behind it, but I do know that things happen. The supply chains get disrupted. We're talking about major tariffs going on right now. I can totally foresee situations where we're not going to be able to get supplies as quickly as we agreed upon before all of that happened. And I struggle with the idea of, holding people up for that, things out of their control. But again, it's up to the person to decide, what is reasonable. So that's just kind of my thoughts on that. I'm going to brew on it while everyone else talks.
To that point, Counselor, could you weigh in on with regard to
Sure.
reasonableness?
Yeah, reasonableness is a common term of art in legal matters when it's something that it's difficult to lay out in precise detail how you're going to make a decision in the future. So the standard, kind of a default standard, becomes what's reasonable, and you measure that by the general common elements of that business. So in this type of situation, you would look at, okay, you've got a building being developed, what is the standard of reasonable to make it safe to get a certificate of occupancy? If those criteria would depend on the specific development, and the person that would analyze it would be required to look at it as an objective of ways that they could. If their opinion was too high, then that would not be reasonable, and then that could be appealed and objected to. But it would look to, so for instance, in this case, it would look at what would other zoning administrators do in a similar situation. So you can't have a standard that 99% would say this is appropriate. It'd be more like 80% or something like that. Is kind of the definition that's used to do that. Typically, it's used when you don't want to have such rigid rules that you're going to spend all your time plowing through and trying to predict the future. So that's roughly how reasonable works.
Thank you, Counselor. Mr. Manager, you have something to add?
Could I give an example that might be helpful too? Maybe just also for the folks at home. So I used to be a zoning administrator, not as great as Jamie and Mike, but we had a similar ordinance, and an example would be with houses going in, and if a house was finished in the winter, and one of the requirements was you had to have trees planted. It wouldn't be reasonable for us to hold up the C of O in the winter if the tree wasn't planted. But then you work with the developer to say, okay, you have to have it planted by April 15th or May 15th or whatever the deadline is, and then there's ramifications if that's not done in that instance. But you have that discussion ahead of time, because it wouldn't be reasonable to withhold it, particularly for something that's out of their control or not reasonable in that regard. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And in your scenario too, Commissioner Koshin, of talking about supply chain disruptions, I would think, if I were the zoning administrator and understanding that, I think I would take that into consideration in terms of whether there's reasonable progress being made, because of the extenuating circumstances inhibiting you to be able to get the supplies needed to do that work. Then I would say that's a factor in the reasonable assessment.
It would also be, is it a safety issue? Is it an aesthetics issue that could delay it? There's lots of factors. That's why it's hard to pin down.
Vice Mayor St. Clair, I think I saw your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Planner Pesh, can you speak to when the zoning administrator is looking at a project, are there specific parameters that they're following? Is there a written code that they're enforcing, or is it more arbitrary?
For planning and developments, it's usually quite specific. It's a time frame that roughly says you must begin work within a year after approval and complete work within 5 years after approval. Extensions can be granted by the Planning Commission, but that's the big picture timeline. When you get into more of the details, it is all outlined in the Planning Commission's approval of what the planning and development is supposed to contain, and oftentimes that includes things like a site plan that very clearly lay out the types of things that are expected of the project. So it's all agreed upon in advance, and that's typically what we're going to be looking at when reviewing things like that.
Okay, so it's pretty structured and not something that would be easy to wander off in a different direction on.
Right, amendments go before the Planning Commission, and in some cases before the City Commission as well. So it's quite structured as far as regulations go, because they're not following regular zoning requirements.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor St. Clair. Before I go back to you, Commissioner Kilgo, Commissioner German or Gorman, do you have anything to ask or add at this time?
Thanks, Mayor. Just looking at this and listening to Mr. Pesh, who's, this is his field of expertise, I should say. So I'm glad that we're taking steps to hold people accountable when we do issue these PUWs and certificates of occupancy for safety and for being in compliance with the zoning and building code. So I think it's a positive move. Yep.
Thank you, Commissioner German. All right, Commissioner Kilgo,
Thank you.
follow.
Yeah, just a few questions. Mr. Pesh, I see that this amendment adds a new paragraph, so it's not changing an old part of the ordinance. It's just adding in zoning administrator shall ensure compliance. Before this was in place, for instance, with Harbor Town or an older PUD that's been finished, what was the how did it go as far as when they got their final certificate of occupancy?
Yeah, so I guess that's the reason that we're introducing this, is that it could vary based on projects. So in the case of Harbor Town and the sidewalks, that just seemed to have fallen through the cracks over the years, whereas other projects that are happening more recently, maybe there was not as much staff turnover since then. We can stay on top of things and expect that within that 5-year time frame, things are completed. It really depends. That's the tough part, is we may have had a zoning administrator, we may have had 3 zoning administrators since a PUD was approved, and in that process, it more or less gets lost in translation from one person to the next. So in the case that was used as an example here, things got rather messy and quite confusing for everybody involved. And so this is one way that we're going to further make sure that all these developments are actually following through on the things that are included in them, and that things like that, staff changes, whatever, don't play as much of a role in whether or not things get done in a timely fashion.
Well, we don't want to lose you, A, but B, if someone stepped in and halfway through a project, it's like an extra checkbox then. Okay, last step, this person, the zoning administrator, has to look over and make sure everything was done.
Yeah, and obviously for a developer, it's going to be motivation to get those things done.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. To that line of thinking or question, this came up last year when I was having a conversation with the city manager, for those scenarios, like how can we ensure compliance? How can we better enforce? Where can we have more teeth? And so this was kind of born out of that conversation. So I'm really appreciative of our manager and planning team for advancing this and bringing it to the planning commission, and the planning commission approving it with a recommendation to the city commission. And here we are. So, Commissioner Cochin.
I just wanted to share that I fully support the following up with our PUDs along, as time goes, basically. I think that is something that our constituents have asked us to do, and so I do appreciate you bringing that to us with that intent.
Thank you, Commissioner Cochin. Any final thoughts or questions before we go to vote? All right. Thank you, Mr. Pesh. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gorman? Yes. Commissioner Cochin?
Yes.
Vice Mayor St. Clair?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo?
Yes.
Commissioner German?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, next item, G, rezoning of 429, 433, 451, 461, 477, 485, 491, 501, 507, 513, 521, and 527 East Apple Avenue, as well as 1022 William Street. This is a second reading of an item that was on our prior commission meeting for approval. Commissioner German.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And actually, I overlooked that this was a second reading, so I'm going to withdraw that motion.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. We're still gonna have to vote on it because
Oh, okay.
it's for the consent.
Yeah.
So if you can still make the motion, and we just
Okay.
don't need a report and discussion.
Okay.
But if you
Okay.
can make the motion, then we can go straight to voting.
Okay, all right. I move to approve the request to rezone the addresses listed above from RT to FBC NC. And you need me to read the addresses also?
No, that's
okay,
fine.
Okay, all right.
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner German, supported by Vice Mayor St. Clair, to approve the request to rezone the addresses listed above and previously announced by myself from RT to Form-Based Code Neighborhood Edge. Any questions or comments before we go to vote? Okay, so this was a second reading. We did vote on this previously, and it had been passed with plurality on the first read, but because all 7 members of the City Commission were not present and voting affirmatively at that time, this required a second reading for a second affirmative vote by a plurality of the members of the City Commission. So, roll call, please.
Commissioner Cochin?
Yes.
Vice Mayor St. Clair?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo?
Yes.
Commissioner German?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item J, ordinance amendment, International Property Maintenance Code. Commissioner Kilgo.
I move to adopt, no, yep, I move to adopt the 2021 International Property Maintenance Code for all city ordinances.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Kilgo, supported by Vice Mayor St. Clair. Good evening, sir. Kindly introduce yourself and please report out on this item.
Good evening, Tim Coles, the Public Safety Director. So the city has been working under the 2015 International Property Maintenance Code. And since I've been here, and actually before I took over in 2022, we've been working to modify it or to get up to date with that. So we've had a lot of meetings. We've looked at that. We want to be able to try to better serve our citizens when we're doing our inspections. So we have put in front of you the 2021 version of the Property Maintenance Code for consideration and adoption. We have Catherine Leonard here, who is my expert in this area. If we have any questions on specifics of the actual code, that she can answer. Also have Kim Spittler from Saco.
Thank you, Chief. Commissioner Kilgo.
Thank you. Chief, you and your team actually have done a great job. Sat down with me and we looked at some of these changes and updates. We have these in place because we don't want slumlords in Muskegon, you know, or we make sure that we keep up with these things. Can you tell the commission and the public, if I was a landlord and I needed to get a rental occupancy, kind of what happens, how long those are good for if if my property passes all of these updates that are needed with the updated code?
I'm going to put the baton over to Catherine Leonard from Saco. She'll be able to.
Hi, I'm Catherine. So you would come into the office and apply, and within 30 days, we try to get out there and do the initial inspection. If there are violations, we come back out within 30 days, 30 to 60, depending on how long you need. And if you need longer, you can always submit that to us and we can work with you through it. If there are violations, you get a 3-year certificate. If there are no violations, you get a 6-year certificate.
Awesome. And then if a citizen of Muskegon was renting and their landlord was halfway through their certificate, but they really felt like there was some egregious thing wrong with their home and their landlord wasn't addressing it, what could they do?
They can come into the office and we have a tenant complaint form, and they would fill out the tenant complaint form, and we would follow up with them and the landlord and make sure it's getting taken care of. And there's depending on the violation is how long they have to fix it. There are certain violations that are 24 hours, there are some that are 7, there are some that are 14, and there are some that are 30 days.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgo. And thank you, Catherine. Hold on in case anyone else has questions for you. But I do just want to clarify because people heard if there are violations, you get 3 months. If there's no violations, you get, or not 3 months. If there's a violation, you get 3 years. If there's no violation, it's 6 years. I think we all understood what that meant, but just for anyone at home, if there are violations on the first inspection, but then they're resolved and everything's in satisfactory order, then the permit will be allowed and no inspections for another 3 years. And if everything's perfectly fine on the first inspection, then it's 6 years.
Correct.
So I just want to clarify that we're not necessarily, saying, oh, you get violations, but we're giving you a permit, but coming back in 3 years. So I just want to clarify so everyone understood that at home. Commissioner Cochin.
Yes, thank you. I was wondering if you could kind of highlight some of the biggest changes from the 2015 to the 2021 policy.
So we're actually not on the 2015. We are working on an ordinance that's from the 80s. We originally were going to go to the 2015, but we've been working on this a number of years, so we decided to just go to the 21 version. Some of the biggest things that it's going to be is a CO detector. Right now, it's required in short terms, but it is not required in long terms. So that is a bigger one. The other big thing would probably be we're going to require that our bathrooms and kitchens have cleanable floors, so no more carpet in there. That's really the biggest thing. And it's all in one location right now. This is
pretty much what we're writing up anyways. It's just a little harder to find, and this will be easier for them to actually read and go through.
Okay. That is all I had for right now.
Thank you, Commissioner Cochin. Any other questions for Catherine right now? Could you clarify what you just said, that we're not on 2015, that you were operating from ordinance from the 80s? Because I recall us several years ago adopting the latest IPMC, and I thought it was 2015. I do see minutes reflecting discussion of it. I'm certain that we adopted that. So
We have not adopted that. We're working on the 2015 building code,
okay, that's what I'm thinking.
but
of.
not the
Okay.
property maintenance code.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking
Yeah,
of. The
our
international
rental
building
ordinance
code.
was
Okay.
written in-house.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. Like, I know we discussed and voted on this. There were nobody else that had any questions or comments for you. So thank you, Catherine. Any questions or comments for Chief Kozel before we go to vote on this? No? All right. Thank you, Chief. Oh, yes, Commissioner Cochin.
I just wanted to thank you for working on that and helping protect our residents who do rent. So thank you.
Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Clemens, Commissioner Cochin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay. Next, item K, approval of amendment from Placer Labs Incorporated. Vice Mayor St. Clair.
I move to approve the amendment to order form to continue services with Placer Lab Incorporated under the revised terms and authorize Jake Ekholm to sign.
Support.
All right. We've got a motion by Vice Mayor St. Clair, supported by Commissioner Gorman. And are you going to
I'm
report
gonna
on
report
this,
out
Mr.
on this
Manager?
one.
All right.
So Placer is a tool that we use to look at trends in where folks go for events and where folks go for businesses. And it's also a tool that, as we're doing business development and retention calls, that will share that information with businesses in the community. It's a great tool to look at, whether we're looking at where you're marketing or where your folks are coming from. It shows using cell phone data where someone was prior to a location and where they went to after they left that location. So you can kind of see how folks flow through. We can even get reports on travel time and distances that people are coming to an event or to a location. And we've used it for things like market for our farmers market, information for the farmers market, and really for events that is a really helpful tool for us to determine how many people are at a certain location and things of that nature. It's usually available a couple of days to a couple of weeks, depending on different criteria after the event, so it's not an instantaneous thing that we have the next day. And then we can request specific data reports from Placer based on a variety of different factors. So. And I would also like to point out this is a tool we've been using for a number of years. And the renewal price of $17,640, which is about a 5% increase from what we've been paying the previous year, is substantially lower than if we were to go and get this product now, because it's based on the population size of the community you're serving. So we would be in a higher bracket that would be about $15,000 to $20,000 more. So we're getting a good deal. So.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
So just to recap what you said, this is looking at aggregate data from people's cell phone pings about where they're moving and how they're moving around in the community?
Correct.
Okay. I don't think I have any specific questions. I wanted an explanation of the Placer AI. I know we talk about it a lot in commission meetings, like, oh, the Placer AI said this or it said that, and I don't know that the community knows what that means. So this was a good opportunity to share that information of how we know when we say that people are going here from there or they're not going here from there. It's not us just making things up.
Thank you, Vice Mayor St. Clair. Commissioner Gorman, do you have anything to ask or add on this item as the supporter of the motion?
I just, to the Vice Mayor's point, also want to make known to the commission and the public, this has been, I also feel like, a wildly successful customer service aspect that we've been able to provide residents, event promoters, event executors, as far as just factual data of who's coming into the city, and I think is helping us make better data-driven decision making. So I'm very excited that we're going to continue on our contract with Placer AI.
Thank you, Commissioner Gorman. Anything else? Commissioner Kilgo.
Yes. I do know that Director Elcombe's not here this evening, but him and his team, the work that they do driving the economic growth of this city, along with our friends at the Lakeshore Chamber of Commerce, is super important to the growth. I know that we talk about housing because it's really important, but it's a very big circle. We have to have jobs to have housing and have resources in our community, and the data that his team uses to help drive our economic stuff is super important, and I want them to continue to be able to do the good work that they do.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgo. Commissioner Cochin.
Yes, thank you. I've got a few questions. So, the data that we are receiving, is this common for cities to utilize, Mr. Manager?
Yes.
And then, do we have to pay per study for using the data, or is it a blank fee, basically?
So this is the fee that covers our usage for 12 months.
Okay.
So we could run one report. We could run, I don't know if we could run a million reports, but we could run a lot of reports. So this is that license for the year.
Okay, so we could run multiple reports to look at an area and really kind of gather the information to see what the usage of that area looks like.
Yes.
The follow-up question to that is, what is the accuracy of that data? Since it's pinging off of cell towers, and I know that there's a range there.
So I'm not a tech expert, so I can't necessarily speak to that side of it. What I can tell you is that it's a tool that is widely accepted as a highly accurate tool for businesses to make decisions on marketing, advertising, and where their folks are coming from. And it's a tool that is used by large corporations to get an understanding of where their customers are. So I think through its use over time and practice and proof of concept, it's been shown to be a highly reliable tool.
Mm-hmm. And just for folks at home, because there's, people get concerned about their data being breached,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, what kind of data do we receive? Are we getting their names, their phone numbers or anything like that? Or are we just getting, like, this person was here, like their number for their cell phone kind of thing?
We can't get individual data. What
Anonymized.
What was that?
It's anonymized.
Anonymized. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So we know that, I'm not going to know that Ken Johnson went from Muskegon to Grand Rapids to go to a specific event. What I'll see is that there were 5 people from Muskegon that went to Lansing for a specific event, or an event that we held here in Muskegon had people that came from, Ludington, Traverse City, Lansing, and kind of show what those travel patterns were, but I'm not going to be able to identify who that was.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. So
yep.
their data is protected.
Yes.
And then the last thing is, when we signed up with Placer AI, I'm assuming we looked at other options as well, and I'm thinking this data is probably, or not this data, but the technology has probably advanced greatly since we originally signed on. Did we look at any other options for other places beyond Placer AI, or we just...
We did not.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And Commissioner Cochin, any other questions or comments at this time? No? All right. Roll call, please.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cochin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item, City of Muskegon Park rules. Commissioner Cochin.
Yay. I move to adopt the park rules for the City of Muskegon Parks with... Wait, hold on. I'm
You
sorry.
can say as presented. We can amend it.
Okay, as presented.
Support.
All right. Good evening and welcome. You kindly introduce yourselves and report out on this or give us an update. This has been before us before and coming back. So, Director Karczewski.
Yep. Hi, Kyle Krachewski, Director of Parks and Recreation for the City of Muskegon. So this is we visited this in February. There was deliberation between the vaping and smoking discussion that got kicked back to the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee. After close to an hour in deliberation on that as well, and looking at all of our options, they decided to vote on keeping the rules the same, to suggest it to the commission to either adopt or to suggest changes or an amendment to it. So I know we've talked about all the rules. I think we're at the point where the main conversation here is the rule number 4 about no smoking or vaping, as it seemed like no other rules have been discussed. So I would in a discussion on how we could move forward here.
Thank you.
So I'm going to open up to you, but I'm going to give you some more context. So piggybacking on what Director Karczewski said. So I am the chair of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. I'm not a voting member. I just preside as chair of that. And the members of the committee did review the park rules specifically with regard to the question around smoking and vaping. And there was, as the director said, considerable discussion and deliberation on it. While they ultimately stuck with their original recommendation, because that is their recommendation, they were not unsympathetic to the discussion that the commission had at the same time. There was some discussion of like wanting to come up with a recommendation that they felt that the city commission would adopt versus, hey, no, this is our recommendation. The commission can decide if it wants to stick with the recommendation, if they want to, deviate from the recommendation, if they want to reject the recommendation altogether. And there was discussion of potentially, getting rid of the vaping piece, as had been contemplated, and there was a vote on by the city commission, but which did not have enough votes to proceed with the removal of the vaping piece within the original version of the recommended rules. There was also discussion around a geographic barrier, such as that I mentioned last night, of potentially a 100-foot restriction, restricting smoking and vaping with 100 feet of play areas, pavilions, and the like. And there was some interest and receptiveness to that prospect, but after discussion, and I did note to them, because they struggled with it a bit in terms of like, well, should we really be coming up with something that we think the commission will approve, or this is how we feel, and I had just emphasized to them, like, your recommendation is your recommendation. Like, you are the citizens from across our city that we've tasked to work in concert with staff to review such matters and advise us and give your recommendation to us. And we can take it or leave it or modify it. And so they felt, well, we want to stick with our original recommendation without modification in that regard. There was, well, the very first time this came before the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, it was unanimously adopted. This last time around, it was almost unanimously adopted. There was one person who voted no, and it's not because they opposed the rules with that prohibition. I think they actually individually prefer that prohibition of no smoking or vaping period across the parks, but they were more inclined of like wanting to put forward a recommendation that differed and be more likely to be adopted by the commission. It wasn't because they opposed that piece. So that's just some additional context around the discussion. So Commissioner Cochin.
I appreciate that. I also did some due diligence and contacted somebody from the Parks and Rec board and talked to them kind of about what the intent was, what was going through their minds during that meeting, and kind of like figuring out where we want to go with this. So as a non-smoker who has breathing issues and whose throat will close up if I'm around marijuana smoke, I do not love the idea of people blowing smoke in my face. However, I also fully support our individual freedoms. And so that's where I struggled with this when I was watching the meeting, because I wasn't at the first meeting. My child was sick at the time. But I think that what the mayor was talking about in regards to a area to limit the smoking in and around playgrounds and pavilions, I think that is a reasonable ask. And And I also feel, and this was what the individual I spoke with, they felt as well, the intention with the rule wasn't just about whether the smoke was a hindrance, it was about the pollution. And as somebody who has cleaned up the beach, who has cleaned up the parks, there's always a ton of cigarette butts. And there's also cartridges. When I go on my walk around my neighborhood, and it's not a bad neighborhood, I find vape cartridges on the ground. And so I do think that if we move to amend this and make it within a certain amount of feet from playgrounds and pavilions, that we also need to ramp up our policing of littering. I think that is really important.
Thank you, Commissioner Cochin. Commissioner Kilgo.
Thank you. I wasn't at the meeting. Was the science of vaping talked about in the deliberation?
Very cursorily, I would say. There was not a focus of discussion around the science around vaping.
Thank you. And my next question might be for the manager. If by chance this was voted no, would it come back next month? If it went back to the Park and Recs Advisory Committee, would it come back next month exactly the same?
Just interject. If we're going to refer, and I was reflecting on this since last night, and hearing from you, Commissioner Kilgo, I think when and if we refer items, whether it's back to the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee or the Planning Commission or any other committee or commission that we've established and appoint people to, that it's best when we refer back to them with guidelines or specific questions that we want them to answer, or kind of guidance of like, okay, look at it from this perspective, or give us this is absolutely off the table. Like, I don't know. We could give parameters. We do that more so with Planning Commission. That's has more of a formal body that's also statutorily empowered. So that's a little different than when we give specific parameters to them. But so it could be referred back to if the commission wished to. But we also do have that timeline of what we want to get these adopted, so they can reflect on signs and installed. So they could be referred back to, and you could say, hey, look at it without come up with something alternative entirely.
Well, there's one item on here that if it was removed, I wouldn't have any. I think the park rules are great. But I'm just curious, like for future commission discussions, future votes, if other items take a separate agenda item, if it wasn't passed, how often could it come back in front of commission?
Oh, I mean, if it's at the manager's discretion on what generally gets put on the agenda, unless it's being referred from a committee, and then that process is that it gets put on the agenda. At that point in time, I wouldn't think it great job security for myself if I continued to put things on the agenda that you were voting down. So, I generally, if it's a staff function and it's something that isn't approved, we generally go back to the drawing board. If it's a committee function, committee's a committee, and we have, and our steering of those committees is somewhat limited.
Thank you.
And just also a distinction that if it's something that's voted down, a majority votes it down versus it didn't get enough votes to pass, there's a distinction between those two, because something that's voted down by majority can't just be brought back at a second meeting or a subsequent meeting. But if an item did not have enough votes either way, then there's more latitude to bring that back, particularly if there's more commissioners present at the subsequent meeting.
Thank you. In February, or I believe it was February 25th, the last time that this item was in front of us, I did talk about the science of outdoors and vaping. My last question right now would be to the maker of the motion. After deliberation, would you be willing to add in the suggestion that the mayor put on yesterday?
So if I, if you for your consideration of what was just presented, the possibility, because I brought it up last night, but I'm going to put it into words right now. It would be potentially to supplant or replace Rule 4 as written to state restriction on smoking or vaping, and then colon, no smoking or vaping within 100 feet of play areas and pavilions. So that would be my suggested language. Okay. Do you, before I go to Commissioner German, do you wish to make an amendment right now, or do you
Well,
want me to?
I would like to hear from
Okay.
Commissioner German or Gorman if anybody else has anything else to say.
Commissioner German.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and good points, Commissioner Colchin, and thank you, Director, for being here. You know, I'm a little, really disappointed with this because this is the exact same thing that we voted down, and well, we didn't get enough approval, to approve this, and it's coming back the same way. I suggested at that time that a designated area be provided in the park where if we allow smoking and vaping in that area, this way they would be away from the rest of the citizens, and because people are going to smoke. Just like we have no alcohol consumption in here, well, you're going to see some alcohol consumption going on in that park, some of these parks. You can't monitor everything, but smoking is pretty obvious because you have the smoke and stuff like that and vaping. But I think it definitely needs to, I would like to see amendment where we have a designated area where anyone that is smoking or vaping, and again, away from the playground area as well, if we choose to do that, allow people to attend the park, but also try to be somewhat, I guess the word is discreet about it, where they're not around all of the citizens and pedestrians. So that's just my thought.
Thank you, Commissioner German. Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Thank you. So I think it's important to clarify a couple of things on this. When it came to us in February, it failed because we didn't have enough commissioners here to pass it. It was a 3-2 vote in favor of the rules, so it didn't pass because we didn't have 4 positive votes, which is very different to me than we voted it down. We did not vote it down. We failed to approve it, and it's semantics, but it's not. Like those mean different things. And given that, I can see why the Parks and Rec Committee, who is completely made up of citizens that we appointed to bring us their thoughts about what the community would like to see in their parks. But I can see because we didn't vote it down, we failed to approve it, that they would come back to see if the full commission would vote differently than 5 of us did. So while I hear frustration in the fact that it has been returned to us, I think there's a lot of sense in why they would do that, because it was not a full commission and it didn't get voted down. It just didn't pass. And I think the point that we are looking at is that cigarette smoking next to children is not healthy. I don't know what the science is on vaping. I know that people have different opinions. It may or may not be safe. It could be, it might not be. I don't think that it would be a bad thing to also have that not right next to children playing on the playground. Or their parents watching them, or the family having a picnic under the pavilion. Parks are community places, and I think that we could have a good compromise with the potential amendment. I think that enforcement of that would probably be easier with a restriction rather than an outright ban. That might just be wishful thinking on my part, but, I know that there are pretty easy ways to measure distance, and if people don't have to exit the park entirely, they might be more amenable to just stepping over away from the playground. I don't think that this is an issue that should be particularly controversial, but somehow it is. There's lots and lots and lots of science that cigarette smoke is bad for other people. Whether it's indoors or outdoors, it's still secondhand smoke exposure. And the sheer quantity of cigarette butts on the ground in every public place is astonishing. So, that all that said, I will support the rules as written. I will support the rules as amended. I will not support the rules removing the ban. So, the ban language entirely, down to modify it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor St. Clair. Commissioner Gorman, do you have anything to add or ask at this time?
Yes, thank you. I will also support the rules as written. I do not know if I will support the rules amendment. We heard a lot tonight about the cigarette butts, but I've also heard from our DPW staff that they picked just as much up lately of vape cartridges, and that's actually more damage that is gonna catch up with us as well. I appreciate the engagement we've heard from residents in the city asking us to support the rules as presented, and I really respect the work that we've asked our Parks and Rec committee to do. And like the vice mayor said, we did not vote this down. It did not pass. So that's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Gorman. So, as I voted, last month, well, actually, into February now, I voted on both those motions in affirmative. One was the motion to amend to remove just the vaping piece and have the rules of no smoking period across the parks. Then there was the original motion, which was, original motion on the park rules, which was to not allow smoking or vaping in our park system, period. And I supported that as well. And as I said at that time, I was inclined to support our residents, and that were the residents that we had appointed to the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee. And they had evaluated it, and they made their decision and their recommendation, and I was inclined to, concur with that. And so I would continue to support that today. So if the motion as presented right now, the parking rules as presented, the motion made, I would vote affirmatively, just as I did on the last vote. That said, given the conversations that I've had with folks throughout our community, given the feedback that I've received, given these ad hoc, definitely non-scientific, polls, kind of that I've been doing as I've been meeting people, trying to get a pulse of where they stood. I've been increasingly gravitating towards trying to find a compromise position of this geographic barrier, because the intent is to keep the smoking activity away from where people are congregating, and so if we had the geographic restrictions, such as not to be smoking within 100 feet of play areas and pavilions, that would satisfy that. I do understand concerns about litter from cigarette butts or vape cartridges, but such can be handled separately from this specific park rule. I think the intent and interest among some who do support a blanket ban is that it would be more effective in limiting those type of items being found in our parks or thrown away in our parks or whatnot. But it is something that could be handled separately or in addition to the park rules, not solely through this avenue. The other thing that had come to mind after we voted in the end of February and we're evaluating a blanket ban on smoking and vaping in our park system was that it came to my mind that there could be an unintended consequence there, that if we were to ban it in our park system, it would result in smokers going to the sidewalk and lining up on the sidewalk to smoke. And so that I don't think that's what we want to see. If we're and could actually be contrary to our intent, because if you could just go to the sidewalk right next to a playground and smoke, and you'd be good to go based upon the rules as presented, that's not really our intent, and kind of runs counter to that. And now you have people that are just trying to come and go down the sidewalk, navigating potential smoke billowing about. And so that's why I do think this geographic restriction could help address that then, such that you can't be smoking next to a playground or a sidewalk. That's within 100 feet of it. And so that's why I think that geographic radius can be helpful in that regard. And also, as Vice Mayor St. Clair had referenced, in terms of enforcement or education, because really it's our focus on education and affecting conduct or activity. It's not necessarily we're trying to be heavy-handed or enforcement and ticket. Our intent is not to punish. Our intent is not to try to make money off this. Our intent is to induce activity, such as don't smoke and vape around kids, play areas, pavilions, and the like, where people are congregating. And so it's a much easier conversation for our park rangers or park hosts or whomever to have with someone by saying, hey, please don't smoke here. This is, within 100 feet, or this is in the general vicinity of people in play areas and whatnot. Please go over there. And that's an easier conversation to have. And can you imagine, going up to somebody who is isolated, all alone on in an area, and there's nobody around, over 1,000 feet, and go up to them like, you can't smoke here. And like, wait, what am I doing? Who am I affecting or bothering? I mean, I think Commissioner German had alluded to that in our previous discussion in February. Some folks just want to go to the parks and enjoy themselves, and if they're alone, not bothering anybody and having a cigarette, so be it. And so I think that we're trying to balance all those competing interests and concerns. At least that's what I'm thinking with presenting this possible compromise approach to get there. On the question of designated smoking areas, when that's come up, it's not been, in my conversation that I've had with people, that's not been, that's been low on the potential approaches. That's not necessarily where folks would want to go. It's either a blanket ban or this compromise. Interestingly, I had pulled one neighborhood association, and it was like, hey, could you raise your hands? Like, do you support? And it was probably about 25 people there. It was like, hey, who supports a blanket ban on smoking and vaping in our park system? 2 people raise their hands. Who opposes a blanket ban on smoking and vaping? 2 people raise their hand. Who supports this, a geographic radius, saying no smoking 100 feet within play areas and buildings and the like? And the rest of the people's hands went up. So in that, that's just one instance, there's anecdotal in that one instance, but in that room, there was strong support for finding that compromised approach with a geographic radius. So, Commissioner Cochin.
Yes, I do have a follow-up question for you, Mr. Mayor. You had mentioned that people would possibly circumvent the rules as presented by going to the sidewalk. Do you feel that could also be the case if we went to a designated area versus a distance?
No, because you can only smoke in the distance. Well, no, they can still smoke on the sidewalk.
That's what I was
that's
thinking.
that's not going to inhibit it from smoking the sidewalk.
If
It's
it's
just like
100
you can
feet
smoke in
away.
the sidewalk. Well, she's talking about if you created a designated smoking only area versus the inverse of no smoking, within this area, creating specific areas where you can smoke. I guess in that case you could smoke in that area or anywhere along the sidewalk. So the concern about potentially pushing people to the sidewalk and creating that be a smoking row would stand. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah, because I did think that Commissioner German's idea did have, value when he proposed it, and I was watching online, because it would concentrate the pollution, basically, and the litter, and it would be easier to clean up for our DPW staff. It would also probably lessen the amount that is there, because not everyone's going to want to go into a smaller area and smoke together. I don't think that that's something that people would enjoy. And I was also thinking about signage when I was thinking about the spacing of the 100 feet between 100 feet between a pavilion or playground. and if we don't have signage stating that, like, that maybe the wording might be too hard to put on a sign. So I was just kind of like some of the thoughts that came to my mind. So you validating that the designated area wouldn't work kind of changes my mind about that thought process. And I would like to make an amendment to my motion. And I might need your help with it.
Okay. I will suggest, let me pull it up. Suggested verbiage would be restrictions on smoking and vaping, no smoking or vaping within 100 feet of play areas and pavilions.
Do you want me to say that? Or do you want me to support it?
If you would have to.
Okay, because I was starting to write it.
Make a friendly amendment to your. I propose a friendly amendment to your motion to replace rule number 4 as presented to state restrictions on smoking and vaping, no smoking or vaping within 100 feet of play areas and pavilions.
I would support that friendly amendment.
And Commissioner Kilgo as the
Support.
All right. So we have a revised motion on the floor to reflect a change to rule number 4. Is there any discussion on this amendment? Commissioner German.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for bringing up the point, Mayor, for possible smokers or vapors going to the sidewalk, because that may be the case here. If that pavilion is, if you're 100 feet away from it, but if there's a sidewalk there, does that rule impact that even though it's 100 feet, it could be across the street almost, depending on the park? And there's a sidewalk there, would citizens have the right to utilize that sidewalk and still smoke? That's my question.
Well, citizens would still have the right to use the sidewalk. If it happens to be within 100 feet of a play area, then there'd be that restriction of no smoking within the 100 feet of that play area or the pavilion.
Okay, so, and if it's outside of the sidewalk and it's maybe across the street, I'll just say, depending on some parks looking at them, then they won't have the right to really even be in the parks. They won't be in the park, that's what I'm saying. So that's the other.
Could you clarify? I'm not
Oh, okay. Director standing at the podium there. Okay, that's the pavilion. Okay, this is the sidewalk here. Okay, maybe 50 feet back. Okay, I'm in the back room across the street. Okay, now I'm not in the park, but I could smoke if it wasn't the ban to not smoke within a certain footage. I could smoke on the sidewalk, hypothetically. So those residents now can't enjoy the park because they're out of the park, but it could be an inconvenience, sunny out, no trees, no shade, anything like that. So that's why I propose a designated area. So residents and smokers or whoever, they have their space. You go to this, and it could be maybe 50 feet or 100 feet away. I just think, to me, it just makes sense, just to have a location where people can come smoke and be away from, the rest of the public, the children, the playground. It's almost like a no-brainer to me, if you ask me, But instead of giving, 100 feet of radius, and then, you have a sidewalk, a public sidewalk, and taxpayers, they could be smoking as well, can't utilize it. So, those are just my thoughts. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Mr. Manager has something to share.
So the staff will do whatever the commission decides the direction it wants to go in. So I want to put that qualification out there. Regarding the designated smoking areas, that was something that we had talked about with amongst staff, and that would be there's several parks that would be really difficult. Like I think about St. Joseph's Park, for example, or the way the playground's set up and the fence around the park and things about that nature. It would be difficult to find an area to designate smoking. And if you have the 100-foot radius, it does for that park. For the most part, it makes that park where you can't smoke in it. The ordinance talks about, the rules talk about in the park. So I would say once you're outside of the park, if you were across the street and that's within 100 feet, that wouldn't apply there. I think it would apply on the sidewalks. That's still the city property. but once you're off the city property, it wouldn't apply. And it's not we're not setting up a situation where people who smoke can't enjoy the park. We're just saying that you can't smoke while enjoying the park within 100 feet of those pieces of equipment. And so we're just, and for the vast majority of our parks, Smith Ryerson, McGrath, Seifert, Reese Field, Sheldon Park, McCrae, they're big enough that there's going to be more, the majority of the park are areas where folks can smoke once you're away from the pavilions if this 100-foot radius was put into place. So.
Thank you,
Hey, just
Manager.
one question.
And then, I
Follow up.
just want to add some
okay.
perspective as well,
Mhm.
that if someone were in transit using the sidewalk and they're smoking, that's different than them kind of like, well, hey, you'd be contravening the park rules in that regard. And the intent, which is keep that activity away from these play areas where people are congregating.
Yeah, I get it. But to city manager's point, and you gave a great example with St. Joe's Park, because that radius would push them actually across the street, and that's exactly what I was talking about. So they wouldn't be able to really be in the park and enjoy the park. It's really not a big park, and maybe if we looked at probably the larger parks and provide designated areas in those larger parks, and maybe the smaller parks give the the 100-foot radius or something like that. But you have people that have disabilities that smoke, that vape. They may want to sit down. They can't, just stand up or stand across the street or whatever. We have to be mindful of that too, because we're serving a community and people have different situations and health hazards and so I mean, does one fit all? If you ask me, no, it doesn't.
Thank you, Commissioner German. Any other comments or questions with regard to the amendment? Commissioner Kilgo.
Yeah, I thank Commissioner for her amendment. We're putting buffer zones around. I don't want anyone to think, I have children, I have grandchildren. I don't want anyone to think that I don't think that we should keep our children safe. It's probably my number one priority, keeping our children safe. With the amendment, it does put buffer zones around our playgrounds and our pavilions. And for those, first of all, 100 feet is a lot shorter than people think it is. It's not 100 yards. Those are two separate things. But it puts a nice buffer around places where our more vulnerable children would be. So I do think that that's a fair compromise. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgo. And I'm sorry, as the maker of the modified amendment, as the amendment, actually, no, it's not even an amendment, sorry, because you modified your original motion. So we're not voting on an amendment, we're voting on your modified motion. So, sorry, I got myself confused a little. I thought we were going to be handling this as an amendment. No, we have a modified original motion that was done by friendly amendment. So, final thoughts then, because we're going to be voting on the modified motion. Commissioner Cochin.
To mix it up, I would love to hear from the city manager, because I have gotten a couple emails on this. Why is it people can't back into parking spaces?
Nope, we're not going to
Can't
be.
do that? Okay, never mind.
What? That'd be a parking, not park rule.
Okay, because I thought that was in the park
You
rules.
could raise that under any other
Okay.
business at the end of the meeting if you wish.
Will do.
Any other?
And what was that amendment?
It's not an amendment, so she modified her motion. So her
modified a
motion is that the rules as presented with the replacement of Rule 4 to state restrictions on smoking and vaping, no smoking or vaping within 100 feet of play areas and pavilions.
Okay, yeah, and given the thoughts that I've shared, I just think that it's kind of like splitting hairs. So, yeah, so I'm not in favor of it.
Thank you, Commissioner German. All right, any final thoughts before we get a vote? Nope. All right, roll call, please.
Commissioner Kilgo,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
No.
Commissioner Gorman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cochin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. All right, we are done with our consent agenda and all the items that had been removed therefrom. So we're moving on to new business, second quarter reforecast for fiscal year 2024 to 2025. Good evening and welcome. Kindly introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm Kenneth Grant, the Finance Director for the City of Muskegon.
All right, you got some numbers for us.
Yes, I do. I'm trying to plug this in real quick. There you go. Okay, before you have a package that that you had a chance to review, and we had a lot of minor changes to a lot of funds. So what I wanted to do was kind of go over the other funds and then go back to the general fund to see if you have any questions. So I'm just going to do some highlights. It's a lot of things that changed in the first quarter and the second quarter. Some of the highlights that I want to go over that I think will make you happy is the Public Improvement Fund. We have been generating a lot of housing sales and things like that. So the city manager directed me to give the fire department like an extra $400,000 to purchase their fire truck. So I think that's a good thing that we're going to use the Public Improvement Fund for. The streets funds, the major street local funds, they have made a lot of changes and they're doing a lot of capital improvements, but I think it's just the timing of some of the plans that they reduce some of the capital expenditures this year. But Dan and his department have done a good job of doing local and major streets. Let me see. That's pretty much it. I don't know if you have any questions for any of the other funds besides the general fund. We had some minor changes in the arena. The revenue has increased, but some of the expenditures increased too, but it's not that bad. We think I was talking to the arena director, we have potential to make more money this year because the Jacks, the longer they go into the playoffs, the more revenues we generate. So we think there's a chance that the revenues will exceed what we had projected. That's what I have on the other funds. I don't know if you have any questions before I go to the general fund. I have a lot of things in here, so if you have any questions, before I proceed to the general fund, I'd like to see if you have any questions.
Any questions, commissioners, before proceeding? No? All right.
Let's see, I'm going to switch to the general fund. See, the general fund, we have, in the general fund, I highlighted some things. We have our revenues. We have, since the beginning of the year, we have found another $1 million in revenues. That comes from the various funds, marijuana funds. We have more miscellaneous funds. We got money for the parking. Like Leanne said, we upped the fees on that, so we upped the parking revenues. We got more federal grants that we have projected. And on the expenditure side, our expenditures went up another $600,000, but with that said, we have like $300,000+ that we reduced on our original budget, that we had a deficit designed into it. So we are actually saving money and reducing the debt that we originally scheduled on the original budget. So I have a lot of things that, one of the things that we are kind of waiting on, we had put in the budget electric vehicle for the parks that we don't know if we're going to get federal funding or not because there's a lot of things going on at the federal level but right now we're hoping we get that $90,000. So we had put that into the budget, and if it changes before the end of the year, we will make an adjustment to that. Let me see what else. We had to make a lot of some minor adjustments to salaries because salaries just, we did reduce some expenditures in the fire department, not the fire department, but the police department, just because they have vacancies and stuff. So we did reduce their salary levels by a little bit. We're having trouble keeping police officers and things like that. You have any questions with the general fund or any questions? I have a lot of highlighted. Everything is highlighted in yellow, has changed from the original the budget that we presented earlier this year.
Commissioner German?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director Grant. I heard you say you made changes to the budget for police. Now, was that increase or decrease?
A decrease because we decreased the salary because what we originally budgeted, we're losing so many officers that the salaries went down. So we just adjusted that salary amount.
And the reason why we're losing these officers like this, or?
Chief Kozel could tell you. There's a lot of reasons. We have a lot of people competing for our officers throughout the region. So they get trained here and they go to other regions, and they might. It's a high demand for police officers everywhere.
Yeah, no, it's competitive now.
Thank you, Commissioner German. Any other questions right now? Commissioner Kilgo.
Thank you. A couple of questions. First off, this does say, just so I can understand, our fiscal year starts July 1st, correct?
Mm-hmm.
This says second quarter, so this is through like December 31st?
Yes.
Okay.
So it takes a long time. Like right now, we're actually in the fourth quarter almost. So we're going to come to you before the end of the year. We like to get 2 quarters under us to kind of see where things are trending, because there's so many things happen. And then we have some departments like income tax, property taxes, that revenue does not come in until the second, third quarter. So it's kind of hard to see where we're at until at least the second or third quarter.
Okay. And then the one line, I know that I can make an appointment and sit down if I ever needed to go line item by line item. I thank you for the update, kind of the halfway mark report. I do see on here that there weren't any changes to CDBG program reimbursements. That was something when all the federal changes were happening that we were kind of concerned about in that department, whether we would get those funds or not. There hasn't been any changes.
Not
to
for
those.
this year. The money that they set aside already for this year, we're pretty much guaranteed to get. We just don't know what's going to happen next fiscal year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgo. Did you have something right now, Commissioner
I
Kilgo?
did, yes. Commissioner Kilgo took one of the things, so I appreciate that. Thank you, Commissioner Kilgo. The other thing I wanted to ask about, which kind of like stuck out to me, there was 2 things under. Well, let me tell you the page number. It's page 187
Of the packet?
of the packet. Yes.
Okay. Do you want to put the packet up, or?
Do you know? I'm looking at it in the
water supply system page.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, I can. Yes.
Can you?
Okay.
Yeah, I think I know what she's talking about.
Okay.
So you're looking at the decrease in the change in the revenue buffer there.
Yes.
Okay. So basically we're factoring in depreciation costs into that we do in the audit at the end of the year, and so we were just trying to project that out in the current year to show that in real time. So we were taking what the auditors look at when they adjust all that out at the end, because there's and Director Grant can probably do a better job than I can in explaining all the different factors that go into the physical assets of valuing the new assets that are going in, the depreciation of those assets. Then that also factors in the loans and grants that are coming in, and so they all offset in different ways. And so to illustrate that in the budget, once we were through the audit and could look at those numbers more clearly, we factored that in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then the other question is on the next page, page 188. Can you tell us how the municipal marina is doing and or expected to be doing?
Well, based on this number, I don't know. We haven't did our budget for this year, but right now, just looking at this budget, it looks like we're going to have $575,000 in revenue. We're going to have a little shortfall. We're going to have expenditures. Looks like we're going to have a loss of about $100,000, which we probably would have to end up transferring from the general fund if we have.
But we did transfer a little bit more last year.
Yeah, so we may have, I was gonna say, we may have a fund balance in there where we may not have to transfer some. So I think we did build that. Thank you, manager, for saying that. We did build in, a little bit of, cushion in there, so, we're prepared for this year, and we're going over the budget for next year, next week. So I'll let you know how that goes next week.
I appreciate that. That's exactly what I was getting at. Thank you.
So some of that is related to, so in both the general fund and then in this marina fund specifically, it's related to capital projects that we were saving money for and moving it in a previous fiscal year, or not spending in that previous fiscal year and carrying it to the next. So, for example, the bathroom building outside the fence line and also the bathroom inside the fence line are both getting done, and so those funds were moved, allocated last year, but we didn't get the projects done, so that money's still sitting there.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
And I got caught up to you on the pages. So,
Any other questions right now?
I guess not a question, but just a comment. A comment. The fire truck came early, which is why, because I think initially we were expecting it in July.
And I think we have some money, I think I have 600,000 set aside from the ARPA fund to go to that. So we needed to figure out where the additional, and I think we got the bulk of that covered. So hopefully that makes the chief or the public safety director happy. So yeah, that's what we were just trying to figure out. We don't want to finance in this market because interest rates are too high.
And this is a big reverse on the fire truck orders, because they had been for the past 5 years. It's been 2.5, 3 year lead time, and when we ordered it, it was a 24-month lead time, I believe, and we ended up getting it in about 18. So we had to figure out how to pay for it in this fiscal year. So.
Questions for me?
Nothing on. Do you have?
I was just going to another comment just to make. Thank Director Grant and his team. The reforecasts are almost as much work as the budget in it of itself. And he and Jessica and Hayden and the rest of the team work really hard to gather all this information from across all of our units to make sure that they have the most up-to-date numbers that we can give you all in the reforecast. And they do all this while setting up to do the whole budget. So it's a lot of time. Work that goes unsung, and they work really hard to keep all these things updated.
Another thing that I wanted to point out, even though this is second quarter, we use some of the most current data to update the salaries and things like that on this one. So, and we plan on coming to you with a fourth quarter adjustment pretty soon, probably in May.
That's the third quarter forecast you're talking
I think it's going to be more fourth quarter because we're in the third. Third.
Before you're talking about adjusting before the fourth quarter is over.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha. So we'll skip the third quarter reforecast, and we'll jump from the second quarter into the fourth quarter, and we're looking to fine tune fourth quarter before it wraps up. So we'll be looking at that reforecast.
Because we're in the fourth quarter right now. I mean, it's April 1st, so.
Okay. And so we'll be expecting that fourth quarter reforecast, our adjustment next month. At the same time, we'll be getting our
the budget.
Initial budget for fiscal year 2026, starting July 1st.
I'm tired of looking. To be honest, I'm tired of looking at numbers. I'm not gonna lie. It's like these, like they kind of cross-eyed you after a while. You're like, okay, then. But we do a good job at my staff and the department heads and division heads help me. We have a great team.
Excellent. Commissioners, anything to ask Rad? Do you have anything else to report out and share with us, Director Grant?
Nope.
All right. Well, thank you to you and your team.
Thank you so much.
All right. Did we get a motion? I don't think we did.
I move to approve the second quarter fiscal year 2024-25 budget reforecast as presented by staff.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Mayor St. Clair, supported by Commissioner German, to approve the second quarter fiscal year 2024 to 2025 budget reforecast as presented by staff. I take it there's no discussion. Roll call, please.
Commissioner German?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman?
Yes.
Commissioner Cochin?
Yes.
Vice Mayor St. Clair?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to any other business. Commissioners, anything you wish to share? Commissioner Cochin.
I do have any other business. Can you, Mr. Manager, explain why we do not allow backing in our angled parking spaces, specifically at the beach?
Well, I might ask Director Kozel to come up, but I think in general, because of how they're angled, if you're backing in when you would go to come out, you're facing the wrong way into traffic. Would be the primary reason. I don't know if there's a more technical reason.
That's primarily it, yes. Before I got here, it's been part of our parking code, so.
The only other thing that I would mention is that we have a number of Easter egg hunts around the city that provide candy and enjoyment for our children. And so, take a look to see what's online in your area and go out and have some fun in the next coming weeks.
All right, and I think Commissioner Kilgo.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, have we made a decision on the docks at Harshorn?
About whether or not we're going to purchase them?
Correct.
We're operating under the premise that the developer is going to move forward with it on their own.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else to raise under any other business? All right. I've got one thing. If my phone will cooperate. I want to acknowledge and celebrate and recognize one of our very own. That'd be Commissioner Gorman, Rachel Gorman, for her recognition as Women of Influence by Crane's Grand Rapids Business Journal. One of many phenomenal women leaders in the West Michigan region. And so I just want to shout out and express appreciation for all that you do for our community and your many different roles.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, and if there's nothing else for any other business, we're going to go to general public comment. First up, we have Sean Perry joining us from the NIMS neighborhood. Welcome. You have up to 3 minutes to provide your remarks.
Okay. When I was listening to you talk about the Parks and Recs, the new rules, the first thought that came to my mind is when you pass laws, when you pass ordinances, you have to have the ability to enforce them. And the other thought that came to my mind is the selective enforcement of those ordinances. And that worried me. It worried me for people that live in Commissioner German and Commissioner Kilgore's, because the youth that they want to pick on, that they want to find a reason. Now, I work for the Public Defender's Office. I'm going to put that out there for you. That they want to find a reason to be able to stop them, to be able to ask for their ID, to be able to search them, might be that smoking law that you wanted to pass. But the guy that comes in from, or the family that comes in from Grand Haven or Traverse City, the white people, they don't want to mess with them. I go to the beach at Pier Marquette Beach almost every single day. Last summer, there was very little presence of police. I know that Lewis is not living there anymore, and so we don't have that big presence like we used to have, but last summer, it was weak. And I think that when we pass laws, we need to think about who we're targeting. Are we doing selective enforcement, or are we enforcing it all the way around? That's all I'm asking, is that we do it for everyone. We don't just do it for that group of young men and group of kids that like to go to Pier Marquette Beach by what I call the lifesavers, and about 8 o'clock every night with their cars all souped up, and we pick on them when we don't go to the cove and get to the people that are bringing their alcohol off their boats and their cigarettes and their stuff, leaving it there. We do it across the board for everyone. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Perry.
you.
Next,
Excellent point.
we have Dave McDonald joining us from Whitehall Township.
About
Good evening.
3 years ago, good evening and thank you. I had an engineer make some drawings for me, and I sent them to Underwriters Laboratory. They reviewed my product for 3 months, various people in their agency and my procedures, and they commented, said I had a very good idea, move forward with it. So I applied for United States patent, and I've built a prototype of my product, tested it, everything works. I've had lab testing done by Clark Lab at Buchanan, Michigan. UL didn't have time to test it because they were behind because of COVID. So I had Clark Laboratory test it for me in Buchanan, Michigan. And this is some of what the results were that would help, my fire trailer would help prevent. This is what can happen when an electric car catches on fire. The first stage is called off-gassing. It builds up pressure and explodes. It blows the windows out, blows the hood up in the air, blows the doors off the car, and it could hurt a fireman or a policeman or the public, anybody close by. So my fire trailer encapsulates the burning car. The fire department pulls it to the scene, parks about 30 to 40 feet away from the car, opens the back door, rotates three support bars. There's no floor in this trailer, so we have support bars while it's driving down the road. And then when they arrive at the scene, they rotate those safety support bars, 2x2 box tubing, rotate them 90 degrees, drop the curtains over the tires and back over the burning car, close the back door, and then raise the jacks about 2 inches, pull the detent pins on the axles, and the axles articulate, so lower the jacks, the whole structure lowers down to the ground. That way the flames don't shoot out from underneath and burn other cars or the firemen when they're working on dealing with the fire. We have doors on the side, 4 doors, 2 on each side the firemen can open. Siemens makes a nitrogen fire extinguisher, so they can use that to extinguish the fire. It's better, works better than water like they currently use most cases. These nitrogen fire extinguishers super cool the battery and puts the fire out a lot better than water does. It could take 25, 30,000 gallons of water to put out an electric car fire. They may be there for 2 days fighting the fire. With nitrogen, it'll put it out a lot quicker. I wanted to see if the city might be interested in using local manufacturers, and it would help our local economy with a lot of new jobs. And I wanted to see if the city would be interested.
That is your time
Okay.
for public comments, sir.
Price is about $85,000.
Appreciate you joining us this evening,
Thank
Mr.
you.
McDonald.
Thank you for your time. Okay.
All right, next up we have Ernesto Gutierrez joining us from the Steel neighborhood. Welcome, sir. You have up to 3 minutes to provide your remarks.
Okay, thank you. Welcome. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's very nice to be here. This is the first time that I've ever attended something like this, and it was actually very refreshing to see the people that were speaking on the citizens' behalf. I came here for something different. I came here really to see what is being done about Fisherman's Landing. That's what I'm primarily concerned about. That's why I walked in here. It was just a coincidence, really, that I walked in on a day where you guys are hosting this. But I'm very grateful. And there's plenty that I could say about that, but something that really stuck out to me is actually the form that you guys allow people to come in. It's called the Citizens Request to Speak form. And what I found on here is your value statement, mission statement, and several key points. A lot of the reasons why I want to and I'm supporting against I don't know what the plan would be with the MARTAC, what it would be called, the land swap, or whatever they're trying to have take place, is a lot of those same principles are mentioned here in your vision statement. So while I was listening here and I was enlightened by a lot of the conversations, and I really do want to thank a lot of you for sincerely speaking for your constituents. I agreed with a lot of what you said, and I also disagreed, but I know that's how discourse takes place. So I really enjoyed that. And I enjoyed that the vision statement seems to highlight those things. However, this proposal to make that switch is, I feel is contrary to some of these things that are highlighted here. So I made just some notes while just sitting here, just listening to you guys speak. So in your mission statement, actually your vision statement, you guys already stated here, Muskegon, the premier shoreline city offering a vibrant, affordable, and ethically diverse city where citizens feel safe, enjoy their neighborhoods, and have access to their city government. Just in the vision statement, right, enjoying their neighborhoods, I have lived here in Muskegon since 2001. And I have very much enjoyed going to Fisherman's Landing with friends, with my siblings as well since I was young. We've enjoyed that place. I still go there. I'm a runner. I love to partake in so many different types of recreation, and Fisherman's Landing has been a very great platform to be able to take advantage of that. So when I saw a flyer at Gazzy's Market on Lakeside, I was very appalled to see that it was even in question after seeing they were even like offering improvements to the area that it would be in jeopardy. It would be in jeopardy of a business taking a hold of that. So then, I'll keep moving forward with this, right? Because some of these things were pretty shocking to me. Oh man, already. Some of the things that I highlighted is the fact that it is to foster opportunities for city youth, to sustain natural, cultural, and recreational resources for the community, and I felt that those points and this plan that is presented kind of contradicts those points.
Thank you, Mr. Gutierrez. Appreciate you joining us this evening. I would
Yes.
encourage you to confer with our city manager if you have any questions or input with regard to what's being considered in relation to Fisherman's Landing.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Thank you, sir. And next up, we have Mary Valentine joining us from the city of Norton Shores. Good
Actually,
evening and welcome.
Can you hear me? Okay, so I'm here as part of Indivisible, representing Indivisible, and there's some of us here. I'm Mary Valentine, and I'll let everybody introduce themselves.
I'm Charles D. Turk.
Diane Stark.
I'm Joan Scott.
So the reason we're here today is because, I don't know, a couple months ago, I guess it was, that we saw an article in the paper about a statement that was made by the chief as to how they were going to deal with the new immigration laws that are coming down. And the quote he said, and I'm going to read the quote because it's really nice. It helps to remind us who we are. He said, "The city of Muskegon is a multicultural, welcoming community. The Muskegon Police Department is aware of the anxiety and concerns surrounding federal changes in immigration enforcement and policy. I stand committed to protecting all members of our great community. We are committed to ensuring every person feels safe and supported when interacting with our department. This trust is critical." So I wanted to read into the minutes the thank you note that we wrote. So thank you, because we did write a thank you note and we presented it to him, and I wanted to read it into the minutes. "Thank you for your statement in which you made very clear you are not part of ICE and that it is your job to protect our entire community so that we can all stay safe. Over and over, I have heard people express their deep appreciation of you for making this strong statement to help everyone who lives here feel safe and secure. At the same time, we are concerned this could put you in a very difficult situation should you receive orders to do otherwise. So we want you to know that this community stands fully behind you in following the laws, no matter which orders you may receive, and we are proud of you for the courage and willingness to help our residents feel safe." And when we presented this to him, one of the things he said is, well, a lot of people were in on this. So that's what the other thing, we wanted to come and thank all of you for your participation in this. The chief did say that the ICE never comes to local police departments and asks them for help, but I've just been reading up on this issue, and they are doing that now. Several police departments have had ICE come to them, and I don't know how the process is, but it makes all of us feel really safe to know that you are not going to go along with it, and the chief isn't going to go along with it, and we also want you to know that if that should happen, we have your backs, just the entire community, because there's a lot of people who, I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of people. So thank you for taking that stand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you joining us this evening and sharing that with us. All right, is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to give public comment at this time? All right, we are going to go to the phones. The call-in number is 231-724-6721. When calling in, please turn down any audio in the background, announce yourself, and share which neighborhood you're calling from if you're a City of Muskegon resident, and if you're not a City of Muskegon resident, which other township, village, or city you're calling from. And we've got our first caller. Good evening. You are with the City Commission for our general session. Please announce yourself.
Eleanor Cantor. I live in the Nims neighborhood.
Welcome. You have 3 minutes to provide your remarks.
Thank you. I'm going to ask that you all listen very carefully to the words I'm saying before you react. Yesterday, I learned that 1, there is no plan for restoring accessibility at Cruzy Park. 2, there is no plan for providing accessibility at Pure Marquette. And 3, no options for access that a disabled person can use independently are currently being considered. I have explained that the boardwalk at Pure Marquette cannot be made accessible because it is literally made of garbage and that it presents a clear and present danger to disabled people trying to use it. I've provided video evidence that it is impassable for wheelchair users. And I am asked again and again to provide more information about how the city can achieve access without actually changing anything. You have turned our once public beach into a business that collects huge sums of money through paid parking. And you've decided that not only is improved accessibility not going to be considered, but also that the level of access disabled citizens have enjoyed since the 1970s will not be maintained. The Commission has decided to actively decrease accessibility in our community while the city's parks budget is bursting with public funds. I don't want to hear about Moby mats or track chairs. I don't want to hear any more about solutions that require people with disabilities to be accompanied by a non-disabled person in order to access our public spaces. You have 2 options. Option 1, be honest about what you've done. Admit that the city has betrayed its disabled residents and that we are not valued members of this community. Option 2, develop a plan to provide access at least one of the city's Lake Michigan beachfront properties. And I'm also going to ask that the mayor not use this public comment as an opportunity to laugh at me, gaslight me, or otherwise dismiss my input. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cantor. Appreciate you phoning in your comments. And give it a few more moments for additional phone and comments. It does not sound like we have any takers for phoning in their comments. Commissioners, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion by Vice Mayor St. Clair, supported by Commissioner German, to adjourn. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you. Take care and be well.